What was the character that was the most difficult so far to kill off for you? And what was the moment that you have the most fun to write?
The hardest character to kill off, well, you know, they're not really hard to kill off. I swat them, they die like flies. You know, most of the major deaths have been planned since I began this series back in the early 90s. But sometimes things are hard to write. Now, of course, if you're just talking about the show, you've only seen a few major deaths so far. Of course, those of you who read the books know that some other deaths are coming. The big sequence in the third book, the wedding, was the hardest thing that I ever wrote. That was very difficult to do. It was the last thing I wrote in that particular book, even though it occurs 2/3 of the way through the book. I had to skip over that chapter and finish the whole rest of the book. And then finally, when it was all done, I came back and made myself write that chapter because it was emotionally wrenching to write, even as I know it was for many of you to read. But that's the way I think death should be in fiction. I mean, too often in television, we use death as an act break, and we don't deal with the consequences of death. If you, as most of us have experienced death in your family, the death of a parent, or the death of a close friend or a sibling, or even, God help us, a child, you know how hard that is. And yet we see people die all the time in entertainment, and we sort of gloss right over it and get on with the action. And I've never felt that's right. I mean, if you're going to kill characters, you know, you owe it to them to make it hurt. It should hurt. Death should hurt. It's our great tragedy as human beings. Our mortality is central to our whole experience here on Earth. So it's not something I take lightly, and I try to make the deaths of leading characters as powerful as they can be. And the other half of it was what was most fun to write?
Yeah, the moment that you have that was the most fun to write.
Oh boy, the most fun to write. Well, I have a lot of fun writing Tyrion's dialogue. It doesn't always come to me right away. You know, Tyrion throws off these witticisms, and I wish I could throw off witticisms like Tyrion, but often it takes me, you know, weeks to come up with the things that he throws off in a second's notice. In real life, I'm very witty, but I'm witty late, you know, like 2 weeks after the occasion, I said, that's what I should have said. And I remember it, but I can do that with Tyrion, and I like it when a little piece like that comes together. That's fun.
Thank you, Josh. I was just wondering, Peter Dinklage just blew my mind as Tyrion in the first season, and obviously in the first episode of this season. Has any more actors actually surprised you as the characters you created? Because it's always so interesting to see.
Yes, well, Peter, of course, is amazing. As he's won the Emmy and the Golden Globe, and the prestigious Scream Award, never forget, for his portrayal of Tyrion Lannister. And he deserves all of those awards and many more. I hope there are many more Emmys in his future. He's just sensational. And he was not our first choice for Tyrion. He was our only choice for Tyrion. We did not audition anyone else. We did not meet with anyone else. We did not really even consider anyone else for Tyrion. We just went out and made an offer to Peter, and thankfully signed him. If he had turned us down, I don't know what we would have done. It would have been very, very challenging, because I don't know that there's anybody else in the world capable of playing that role as he's playing it. We have an extraordinary cast. They've all done very well. Is there anyone who has surprised me, though? I don't know. In a sense, I suppose all three of the principal children were surprises. They were the hardest roles to cast. It's really hard to find good kid actors. There are a lot of kid actors in the world, and including in London and Ireland, where we principally conducted our search for our Arya, our Sansa, and our Bran. But most kids, you know, it's hard for a kid to memorize all these long speeches, you know, so you get kids in and they've memorized the lines, but that's all they've done. You know, there's nothing, they're not acting, they're just reciting lines that they've memorized. And I'm not trying to criticize for that. It's a great achievement for a 9-year-old kid to do something like that, but that doesn't mean they can carry off the role. And then on the other hand, you get the other extreme, you get sort of the kid actor who has been taught, maybe he's taken a few drama classes in school, and he's been taught that acting is all about emoting. So they emote all over the place. They're grimacing and grinning and making faces, and it's, you know, you just want to tell them to stop it, you know. Stop mugging for the camera. It's way, way too much. And, you know, you look at hundreds of these auditions, and you begin to despair of ever finding it. And then we find someone like Maisie. The minute I saw Maisie Williams' audition, I knew she was Arya, and David and Dan all agreed. I mean, she was just perfect. And Sophie Turner, Isaac Hempstead, right there, they're doing amazing too. And you know, most kid actors in Hollywood, there's a lot of them on sitcoms that come out of Los Angeles. But all they have to really do is be cute and kind of get off a snappy one-liner occasionally that puts down the adults. That's the usual sitcom formula. Our kids have to do a lot more than that. Our kids have to convey a full range of human emotions, including some fairly dark emotions like grief and pain and loss and fear. That takes serious acting chops, and we are very fortunate to find serious acting chops in those 3 kids. Sean Bean was great, but he was no surprise. Lena Headey was great, but she was no surprise. You know, I could say that about all of things. Emilia Clarke has been amazing as Daenerys. I thought her scenes in this one were marvelous. And the fact that she has to deliver half of her lines in a made-up artificial language that no actual human being had ever spoken, that's pretty impressive, too. I know that, let's see, all your things are subtitled here, so it was actually odd to me because when she's speaking Dothraki, I'm used to the English subtitles at the bottom, and I couldn't read the Portuguese subtitles, so that was the only part of the thing I didn't understand. But Emilia is great. Another actor, one of our supporting actors who doesn't get enough credit, who really deserves it, is Conleth Hill, who plays Varys. God, he is wonderful at Varys, and he really has completely disappeared into that thing. I mean, I saw his audition when he was still being Conleth Hill, and you know, he's nothing like Varys. You know, you can see the Woody Allen movie that came out a few years ago starring Larry David. If you see that, he has a small part in that where he's one of Larry David's friends. And take a look at him and you're seeing someone much more closer to real Conleth Hill, and then you see him as Varys, and he's just become the character, and there's no traces of the actor who was around there remaining, so he's pretty amazing. But I could go on all day. I love our actors, I love our cast.